past performance is a predictor of future performance. So I'm always using the STAR method. Hey, tell me about a time when you were overwhelmed on the job. What was the situation? What was the tasks that you took? What was the action of that? And what was the result? The STAR method. And it's always, I need you to go back in your memory banks. We don't want people making things up. Anybody can pass an interview when it's, here's what I would do in this theoretical situation. We really want them to give us an actual. And you will be shocked what people tell you when you ask them a situation.
You make bad hires when you are under extreme pressure. So you need to have a systematic process around it. You should have a funnel that has candidates in it that you can dust off that old resume from 6 months ago and call them up and say, hey, you still looking for a job?
This episode of Contractor Evolution is a re-release of a Breakthrough Academy web class. Keep listening for step-by-step guides on how to implement high-impact business systems into your organization. You can download the resources and templates discussed in this web class in the link in the description. You're watching Contractor Evolution, the podcast by Breakthrough Academy, where we systemize contracting businesses for growth. Keep watching to learn how the world's top contractors scale their companies, build killer teams, and make more while working less. We have a solid jam-packed hour and a half for you guys. We got some epic people on stage beyond just me today, and super stoked to introduce you to them all. Where we're going to talk about how to hire, especially when not the right people are applying, and how this applies to all of us in the building trade, in the contracting space, so that we can get it right this year. So everything we go through, we'll be talking through different resources, different structures, different processes you can use for your business. We will give you guys templates on this. So look out at the end. There'll be a hiring package that we're going to give all of you. And we'll put a little link out there for you guys to grab that. And as we do this, here's my one question to all of you. How many of you feel this when it comes to hiring right now? It's a bit more of like a hope and hustle methodology, where it's like I post, I pray, I interview, we try them out, and then we repeat the process over and over again. Give me a me if that's you. Because I think a lot of us, although we might think we have a way to hire, it's a little bit more reactionary than we would like to admit. So give me a me if that's you, be honest. Yeah, that's right. This I find technically is a lot of us in the industry, right? It's something that we don't think about enough until it becomes the biggest priority, and we ignore it until it's too late. So I hope today get more productivity from all of you, give you guys some thoughts and things you can build out. So it's not these 5 steps. It's more well thought through. So the agenda, I'll introduce who's who in the zoo here. We got a few people on deck. We'll have mostly a roundtable discussion today. So it'll be less about just like slides and giving you guys education. It's going to be about all of us working together as a bit of a mastermind. Like I said, we've got some resources for you. If you want to go deeper and start to book a one-on-one time with us at Breakthrough Academy, we can support you in some of this and helping you in your organization. And then we'll have also time at the end for an open forum Q&A. So who's here? Well, there's me. I'm Danny Kerr. I'm one of the co-founders of Breakthrough Academy. I also actually used to be the head of HR for a fairly large franchise organization. For about 2.5 years, I was fully in recruitment mode, hiring franchisees, project managers, technicians. So I'll give some of my spice and what I learned all those years ago and what I've been doing at BTA. We've got Matt Reisinger, founder of Reisinger Builds, and the Build Show has 2 pretty, I would say, fast-moving organizations going on, and you've done a very good job finding key people to run and manage those organizations. We'll speak.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
I've met your people. They're great. They're great humans. We've got Matt Balfe, one of our coaches here at Breakthrough Academy, and works with about 30 members right now. Also has, we'll get through it, but I think you have like 23 or 24 years in this industry. Hiring has been a big part of your role for a long time. And then we got Jacob Toler, one of our members at Breakthrough Academy, who has, I think, just an amazing journey over the last 1.5 years of what you've done to recruit and hire good people. And it's turned your entire company around, which we're going to get into. So to bring some optics to this. So Jacob, you went from subcontracting crews to complete self-performing crews, which is a massive shift. So we'll get into this a little bit today, but you hired 4 crews over 5 months. That helped your net profit go from 0, which is rough, right? That's a lot of risk to take when you're making no money, to bringing in those people and actually making an 8.5% net, which is a massive improvement in a very short period of time. Awesome work, dude. And you built a pretty epic recruiting system around this. So I don't know if you have anything you want to say to introduce yourself, but welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Yeah, pretty crazy story. I would love to get into some more of the details there, but just, I think we all have some massive failures in our entrepreneurial careers. And I definitely had one last year. I'm probably going to have more in the future, but we came back from it with some great successes that was great, of course.
We've got Matt Balfe, who I'm going to refer to as Coach Matt, so we don't confuse the two Matts. But Coach Matt, welcome. You have 23 years in the construction industry. You have hired dozens of roles from laborers to senior managers, and you currently work with 30 members of BTA on the construction and trade side. Welcome. Anything you want to introduce yourself on?
No, just excited to be here. Jacob's done amazing work this year. I'm super pumped for him to tell a bit of his story and share my experiences. And there can never be enough Matts though, right, Matt?
I totally agree. I'm all about the Matts. I even named my youngest son my same name. I waited till my 4th to get a junior.
You guys have no idea how much my dyslexia is running wild right now. It's just like, I'm going to refer to Matt Reisinger as Reisinger, and I will do my best to keep that tone through this whole thing so we know who we're talking to. But Mr. Reisinger, you have a background in recruitment as a national with a national builder, which is really cool. I don't know how many people know that, but that's massive. I'll let you introduce yourself, but you'd have hired.
I was just going to say that's been a big key to my success. I mean, I feel like this topic could go 6 hours, not 90 minutes, because it's so vital to the success of any business is putting the right people on the bus and then putting them on the right seat and figuring out what bus stops to hit to bring the people on the bus too is really what we're talking about today. But I spent 2 years as a kind of recruiter, HR, at a big national builder, the 6th largest builder in the US that I worked for my first 7 years in the business. And that's been really, really vital. So I'm going to share some of those funny stories, helpful stories, and things that I learned back then that I still do today, Danny.
Cool. Well, welcome. And then on top of that, just so you guys know, and I think a lot of you probably do know, but Matt runs something called Build Show. They've got a really great site for tons of content like this and a whole bunch more on the building trade and the science of building. Aaron, if you want to put a link in for anybody maybe who's not in it yet, but Matt, do you want to speak to this just briefly?
Yeah, cool graphic. Thank you. I started, the quick basics is I started a YouTube channel after blogging for a year or so, just as a way to market my business, which, by the way, actually helps a ton with recruiting. We're going to talk about that as well. Having any social media presence. And I would tell you that even when I had 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, it was beneficial to my recruiting purposes. But today, our motto is know better, build better. Breakthrough Academy has been amazing on the business side of know better, build better. They've been with us for 4 or 5 years now, maybe. I can't remember. It's been quite a while. And we publish like 20 new videos a week with, I think we're at 16 or 17 build experts and maybe 5 build pros, which are like YouTubers that we brought on some of their content as well. So we're all free and we love educating. So that's the quick pitch.
And you've got a great community. There's a live event that you can't register for yet, but I recommend if you can come meet us all live. There's just a lot of really good human beings that are where you are. So
buildshowlive.com.
All right. Here's my question to all of you. I want you to think about this too before you answer. What is it that's really breaking your hiring right now? Because I hear a lot of this, and I wrote this slide up thinking there's probably one answer that I think a lot of us, that is more the root cause. But is it that you're not getting enough applicants? And let me know A, B, C, D, or F, but is it not that you're not getting enough applicants? Is that the applicants you're getting aren't qualified? Is that people keep ghosting you and no-showing you for meetings and interviews? Are you hiring people, but it quickly just doesn't work out? Do you have people stick around, but it's not more than like 12 to 18 months and you're constantly rotating positions? Or is there more of a route that's like, I don't have the time or the process to do this right from the beginning? Is that more what's going on? Let me know in the chat. So I see some of you going in with, some Fs, some Bs and As, Ds. Yeah, you hire, but it doesn't work out. Okay. We're going to get into this because I think today it's an hour and a half. Like Matt said, this could be probably a full day even, but the real win for a lot of us is taking what we have here and starting to build it into a repeatable system and being a bit more proactive in our recruiting and our hiring. Like I said, that for a lot of us, this is something that when it's not a priority, it's the last thing we think about. And suddenly overnight, it becomes the number one thing. We haven't built a good way to predictably attract and maintain really good people. So today we're going to go through some best practices, but I really challenge all of you to start to build into this in 2026 and don't have this just be something that you do quick, you get some ideas and you throw some stuff at the wall. Like this should not be a spaghetti on the wall exercise. This should be a focus exercise after today's webinar. Okay. So let's get into it. I've got some questions loaded and let's get into some conversation around this. So let's start with Jacob. Jacob, I would love on your end if you could just explain your hiring evolution story, where you've come from, where you're at now, what you've learned along the way.
Yeah, so I probably don't have as much experience as some of these guys in the room for sure, but starting the business 5 years ago, I remember I posted, I needed my first help, right? And I posted the ad on Indeed. The first applicant came through. I was pumped, didn't run any money to it. I called the person, met him at the coffee shop, had no focused interview, no template to follow, and hired him on the spot. And looking back, it's just funny because you don't hire that quickly, right? You want to take it slower and you want to have a more systemized process. But that was kind of the beginning stages, right? And over the years, there's been good people, there's been bad people, but just not having a system has not been helpful, right? And then just going into present time now, I think we've finally gotten a little bit of a brand established. We've got some systems in place, an ATS system, an applicant tracking system, some other AI involved, and it's just making the process so much more streamlined, so much more automated. And so that when we look at, to find one good candidate, we know we have to get a certain amount of people through the door to find that one good person. So it's just knowing the numbers, I think, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, we've got some numbers. I'll get you to share them in a couple slides, but you've literally got the math. You know exactly how many applicants you need, to how many first interviews, to how many hires, and what that looks like, which is really good. Okay, Reisinger, I'd love to know your story on this because you started early days, more coming from a professional element of this. So
yeah, it's interesting. I'll try to be short, but I feel like what I've done has actually come a little bit full circle. When I was working for a national builder, we were hiring for, let's say, 75 or 100 positions a year, like always pretty much the same position, assistant superintendent. Like, you have no idea what the business is about, but we wanted young folks, typically college graduates that were in a business or a construction management program that didn't necessarily have construction background, but were good leaders. They were smart, that showed in their resume that they had accomplished things, not just showed up and gotten a trophy. And the process that we took back then was I would get a resume. Literally we'd get hundreds of resumes a week, probably. I'd screen resumes really quickly and get a feel for, from these college seniors who had actually accomplished something, who took leadership. And it was funny how you would be like, oh, they're the captain of the lacrosse team. They must be incredible. And then you get to a face-to-face interview. Maybe you're like snowed because they're handsome, or maybe they're you're like, well, this guy's a dummy, or this girl is terrible. But one thing that we learned then that I still use today is once they made past the initial screening, and actually here's my quick process today. When we get resumes in, and I'll tell you later about how we get the resumes, we give people a 1 to 5 star. We keep it on monday.com, which is our project management software, so that anybody in the team can look at them. And we rate them 1 to 5 star. If they're a 3 star or above, we typically feel like that warrants a quick conversation with them. To Jacob's point, the coffee shop, but we don't do the coffee shop. We say, hey, can we do a quick 5-minute Zoom call? I want to ask some questions about your resume. This isn't an interview. This is like a fact-finding mission. Because in 5 minutes, you can get a feel for like, oh no, this is definitely not going to work. They can't even pronounce the company name. They've never heard of us. Like, they obviously don't know what they're getting into. Or yeah, this person's pretty good. So then once we screen it down to those, then we say, okay, we're going to bring, let's say, 5 people in, 6 people in for a 20 to 30 minute interview. Usually just one team member will bring those people in for that 20 to 30 minutes. If we like them and we think, yeah, they should go into round 2, then we send them to this company called PSP. It's a HR and industrial psychology company out of Pittsburgh, PA, that I've been using for darn near 30 years now. And they've developed a online personality test and critical and logical thinking test. It costs about 100, I can't remember, maybe it's 125 to take for each applicant. And it gives me their work behaviors and how they fit with the job that they're interviewing for. Let's say it's project manager or senior project manager. We have some others in there too, like office manager and some other stuff. But it shows how they fall on successful candidates in these work behaviors. Like I want to know about their planning, organizational skills. I want to know about their communication skills. I want to know about their frustration tolerance. And I've got a bunch more on there that we test for. But then also they've got a 20-minute critical and logical thinking test. In the building world, as much as we like to think there's a blueprint for building a good house, every day is different. And for me as a custom builder, literally every house is extremely different. So I need people that are good, critical and logical thinkers. And so on that test, there is an absolute value. You know, let's say it's a score of 0 to 100. And so the PSP tells me, are they above average, below average, or average in this critical and logical thinking for this position? And man, that's super helpful to have that data before you go to, let's say, a bigger interview with them. So assuming they do fairly well on that test and they're not like real below average on critical and logical thinking, for instance, then we'd send them on to our kind of final round of interviews where there's 2 or 3 people in the company. It's usually something like an hour and a half, maybe 30 minutes with each person individually, and then maybe 30 minutes with the whole group. And by the time we're done with that and we have 2 or 3 people that made it through that gauntlet, we usually have it. We're all pretty fixed on one person. So that's the long answer, but hopefully that's helpful, Danny.
That's great. You actually, this is the next question we have coming up through recruiting process for you. You jumped the gun.
I jumped the gun. I'm sorry, dude.
That's okay. What I picked up from it is there's a initial like resume screening. And actually, what I'm interested to know, how do you decide who is a 3 and a 5 for who to call? Like, do you have a rubric for that, or is that gut? Like, how do you look at resumes and before you even talk to somebody and decide priority?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It really depends on the job, right? If they're an assistant project manager, someone that we don't necessarily need someone who has a lot of construction background. It's very much more gut. And I would say we lean towards taking a 5-minute phone call with more people, unless you're just like, no, this is clearly not a fit. But for the higher level positions, you know, we do have a rubric. We have a job description. So it's a mixture of gut and, hey, do they have the basics? Like right now we're hiring for a senior project manager. And I think we've said we need someone who has at least 7 years of high-end construction background. And so we're looking at the resume and going, hey, you know, you worked for Toll Brothers for 10 years. That doesn't meet our criteria for a senior PM. So we're not gonna consider this person for this senior PM position. You know, maybe if it was a different position, we would, but you know, this is the rubric for this one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You also just skated over something I think is pretty crucial is you have the job description pre-done. So you know what you're actually looking for. I think a lot of times it's, I have a problem I'm trying to solve. Let's go find someone to solve the problem. But no, what is the actual like thing they're going to do every day? What are the KPIs they're in charge of? What are the responsibilities they have? Now we can go look at people's resumes and see, do we have the qualifications to do that? So something to put it against is good. Let's get into this question. And I'm going to get Jacob, you to start on this. But Jacob, what is your recruiting system? What are you currently doing? What did you figure out? What's your flow? And actually, while we're doing that, I would love to know in the chat, anything major in your systems you guys have built out in the last year that you've been like, this has been huge for us. So feel free to share as we're talking. But what are your systems, Jacob? And while we're in the chat, anybody else that wants to add to this, feel free.
Yeah, cool. So I'm super glad that Risinger was talking about some of those higher level positions, mid-level, senior level management positions. One of them that I want to talk maybe more specifically on, just because we deal with it in our company, is more the trade craft worker. So like,
That's a good one.
Carpenter, that's skilled carpenter, crew lead, or whoever is going to be in the field doing the work, right? So I'm going to focus on that. If you look at just from intake, a candidate coming into the ATS system, that applicant tracking system, that where you're managing all those people forward, the way we do it is we've got a candidate that comes in through the system. They are immediately hit with a few pre-qualifying questions. So at this point, they've already put in their application, and they're on the screen. So that second column over as applied, that is bringing in all the candidates from different places, whether that's Monster, Indeed, Facebook, and they put in an application. Wherever it is, you can have all these links out and they come right funneled into that system. Then from there, they hit a few pre-qualifying questions, just basic stuff to make sure that they have a driver's license, are, of age, just basic stuff like that. And then they immediately get sent a link to take a personality assessment. So we actually hit that really early in the process, right out of the gate. And I know, and I had the same concern, how in the world are we going to get, some of these folks to take personality assessments and sit through a 10 or 15-minute assessment? Well, I do agree that a 60-minute personality assessment for a senior level manager is awesome. But what I've found has been more successful is like a 10, 15-minute personality assessment, just something to get really just some quick feedback on their thought process has really helped us. So then, just like what Reisinger was saying, this system, WiseHire, which we absolutely love, we've been using them for about a year. It also has different roles built in where, you've got a salesperson, you've got a lead carpenter, you've got an apprentice carpenter. So it's measuring their personality disc assessment based on what the ideal might look like. From that point, nobody is the same, right? We're not looking for a cookie cutter person. Everybody is individual in their own personality. And so if they don't necessarily meet the personality, we don't necessarily rule them out. But the next thing that we're going to look at is the resume, the knockout questions, and make sure that if you look at that as like kind of a three-legged stool, as looking at that candidate as a solid person, do they meet most of that three-legged stool? Does the personality look decent? Resume look good? And are they qualified? And then from there, we're booking a pre-qualifying phone call. We'll usually reach out to them like immediately. And then if they don't pick up the phone, we'll send them a link to schedule a call with our team. It's just helping with that automation process so that we don't have to continue to chase that candidate, right? Then from the pre-qualifying phone call, we decide who we're going to bring in. So just like Matt was saying, it's a kind of a culture check. Make sure that they can communicate well, so that we want to spend time with them in an interview process. Then we'll bring them in an interview. We'll have a great hour-long sit-down interview. Usually I'll have two people in the room with me, just to make sure we get a good, unbiased opinion of that candidate and move forward. So yeah, this is an example of the focused interview that we use for a trade role in the field. And I don't want to go into too much detail in here, but it starts off with, at the top, getting to know the candidate right out of the gate. So let them talk first. And then one of my favorite parts of this interview is section 4 there. It talks about sharing something about yourself. So when I can get a good gauge on a candidate that might be a good feel for the role, I immediately tell them about the story of the company, about me, so that they can feel personally connected to who they're talking to and interviewing at that time. I've found that is huge for candidates actually opening up. And then especially when you go to make them an offer, they're ready to commit and move forward. And then there's some other questions we proceed for with the rest of the interview. We have some deal breaker questions like pay, background check, their drivers, driving record, all that kind of stuff. And then we trial close them, just like you would a sale with a client. We're asking them if they truly want the job, if we can get them at that pay rate or however it is, so that before they walk out of the office, we've got an action direction to move forward. So that's what it looks like for us.
So good, man. So good, Jacob. Can I make a comment on that real quick?
Sure.
I don't know if you've thought, I suspect you've thought about this, but notice for the contractors in the crowd, look at every question that he asks. It's never a theoretical question. It's always hey, think about something that happened in the past. And I suspect Jacob's like me, where I think that past performance is a predictor of future performance. So I'm always using the STAR method. Hey, tell me about a time when you were overwhelmed on the job. What was the situation? What was the tasks that you took? What was the action of that? And what was the result? The STAR method. And it's always, I need you to go back in your memory banks. We don't want people making things up. Anybody can pass an interview when it's, here's what I would do in this theoretical situation. We really want them to give us an actual. And you will be shocked what people tell you when you ask them a situation and you ask those hard questions. Like, tell me about a time when you had a client that was really upset with you, like that was really like ready to fire you, thought that you were a terrible builder, said that you were a liar, any situation where someone was just absolutely insane. And you'll be shocked at the story. Sometimes it's like, here's what happened. And, I won them back over. And other times they're like, yeah, we got sued and I called her, you wouldn't believe it. And blah, blah, blah. You're like, dude, I can't believe you're telling me this. Like, why would I think about hiring you? Funny story. When I was an HR recruiter, I used a similar question like that. And the kid told me about how he got his girlfriend pregnant and was marrying her now and doing the right thing. And he's trying to get off drugs now, but it's still a part of his life. And I was like, man, I really appreciate your honesty. And we'll get back to you.
Well, here's what's interesting too, Matt, is a lot of people say to me, they're like, well, why do you ask questions? People just lie to you. And I think what you just said is the thing through that. It's get to the stories, get to the specifics, get to the actual, like what happened, who was involved, what was their names, how long did it last, how did you feel about that? And then probe through it, where it's like each open-ended question leads to the next. Just so you guys know, this will be in your download package, but this is just 2 of 10 traits that we look at. One's on leadership, one's on tenacity. Actually, I saw it in the chat earlier. Someone was asking, how do we probe for hard work? This is tenacity, but the key is in the questions.
So and if you're, man, that's so valuable, Danny.
It's huge.
Everybody gets this afterwards.
Get this afterwards
on there. That's killer.
Completely free.
Yeah, so that's amazing, y'all.
Each page will walk you through one trait. And what I recommend you do, there's 10 different traits. These are all personality traits. Delete the ones that don't pertain to the role and then save as that file for that specific role. And then you'll have a specific interview template for that role interview process. And I can't recommend enough, Matt, what you just said around like, go past the I would have, could have, should have in this scenario. We don't care about that. We care about what have you done?
Yeah.
What happens next?
Yep.
The facts.
Right.
And it's in that past performance is always going to predict future results. And that's, anyway, good point there. Coach Matt, you work with a ton of our members. You've worked with Jacob on all of this. What are the patterns you see in process that are the big wins? What works, what doesn't work? What's important when it comes to all this?
Yeah, I think maybe some low hanging fruit that people can just go ahead and start working on right away. Not have to build out a giant process. Speed to lead is so crucial with hiring, just like sales. You got to get back to these people fast. So have a careers page on your website. Have an application form that they can apply on there that goes into a Google sheet, and then build some automation around it that sends them a text message right away that says, hey man, we got your application. We're going to get back to you in 48 hours or 24 or whatever it is. That stuff goes a long way. Another thing is, if you're a business owner and you have a team, especially if you have a hiring manager, that's the role you're hiring for is going to be reporting to, let them help you with this process, right? They should be following a standardized interview process. They should have a scoring rubric to make the system objective. Give them some training, let them support you in finding these people. You can still be a part of the process, but you don't have to do all the heavy lifting. So lean on your team to help you do this stuff. But the biggest thing I think of all is just around the consistency. You have to have a consistent process that you work through so that everybody's following the same game plan, the same playbook. You're asking the right questions, the same questions, you're scoring things consistently. It's going to give you better results. It's going to allow you to compare things objectively instead of subjectively. Take some of the gut feeling out of the process.
Awesome. As part of those automations, part of that process can be baked into an ATS. Actually, let me know in the chat, how many of you guys use an ATS? And if you don't know what that acronym means, I'm not going to tell you yet because it means you don't have one. That's okay. What is an ATS? Do you have an ATS? Let me know, yes or no, because it's something that I don't think everybody has out of the gates. You can do it manually through every time someone applies, saving them in an Excel sheet or putting them in a Dropbox folder. But eventually, I think a lot of us should look into systems that look a little like this. Wise Hire is one of them, and we can actually have an applicant tracking system. That's what it stands for, to manage them, just like we manage our sales pipelines. So
that's really cool. I admit we don't do that. But I would also say that at least in my construction company, we're not hiring on a regular basis. We're probably only losing or hiring 1 or 2 people a year in general. So this isn't a regular rhythm if we were a fast moving organization. On the other hand, my video company has grown quite a bit, and I'm a little ashamed to admit I'm not part of that hiring process.
It means good things about it. You did a good job leading your people to be able to take and grow that. I will say one thing, Matt, actually, or Reisinger, say the right names.
Reisinger.
We're going to talk about tactics in a second here. And to the point of having a place to store your applicants, even if you're not regularly hiring, means you can always go back to them. And Matt, I imagine you know this from being a recruiter, like your bench is gold.
Yeah.
Building that bench and tracking that bench is key. I'm going to let you start with this, but like what out of the box tactics have you tried? Maybe speak to even that a little bit if you'd like. And what are you doing to generate flow?
I'll tell you a fun one, which could have a application today, but this is an example from 25 years ago. I was at the corporate office for this builder that, built 10,000 homes a year. And my boss, who was the VP of HR, came to me one day and said, "Hey, our corporate office needs a new receptionist, like the person who answers the phone. And I need you to help me find it." I was like, "I have no idea how to hire a receptionist. Like, I've never interviewed for this job." He's like, "All right, here's the plan, Matt. There's at least 200 companies in this town that we're in." I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, that have organizations above 500 people. And so I want you to call every single organization of this size, and whoever answers the phone, you pitch them on this job opening. And you don't say, "Hey, will you come work for me?" You say, "Hey, do you know anybody who might be interested in this kind of job?" And lo and behold, we hired this woman that literally the CEO of this company came and like shook my hand and was like, "Thank you. Darlene is amazing." And she was there long after she was there for like 20 years. And I was like, this is the high point of my career. Like, I hired Darlene. And at the end, I had a 2-minute phone call with her like, "Hey, I know this is crazy, but we're looking for somebody to handle a really high volume, desk. And we have a great organization." And I gave her the pitch and said, "Do you know anybody that might be interested in that?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, actually, I might be interested in that." So it is a little shady in some respects, thinking of calling your competitors and asking their people, "Do you know anybody?" But if I can fast forward to today, the out of the box tactic that we still use all the time is to call all the people in your network that you trust, right? If you're like me, you probably use the same subs all the time. I have some subs I've used for 20 years now. I have a lot of the same supplier contacts as well. And anytime we got to hire somebody, we always call through that network first. "Hey, Jim, my lumber salesman, so-and-so left. We're really sad to see her go. We need someone to replace her. We're looking for this level. Do you know anybody out there that you think might be a good fit?" And let Jim call your competitor and go, "Hey, the guys at Reisinger are hiring. I've been their lumber sales guy for 20 years. And you told me last week how unhappy you were with XYZ. You should call them." And man, I can't tell you how many good people we've picked up over the years. Frankly, that works for hiring subcontractors as well. And that's been a fantastic source of trades for me over the years as well. Is call your stucco guy. He knows exactly who the great masons are, who the great tile guys are, because he works around them all the time. And he also knows who not to hire. And sometimes you might ask them that as well. As a follow-up question. "Hey, is there somebody out there you think is looking for a job that you wouldn't hire? Whether it's a sub trade or whether it's an executive position or a PM position or whatever." So that's a great source of out of the box for us as well. And if you don't mind me going long, I've got one more for you. Hopefully I'm not ahead on this. And Danny, tell me if I need to hold this, but I want to talk for a minute on our social strategy. Should I wait on that? I can't remember.
No, hit it. Yeah, this is great.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that, in 2008, I started a YouTube channel, which I think of as social media, right? And maybe 2010, we started on Facebook. And those social media touch points where we showed our company personality and who we are and what we're like, not just pretty photos, finished photos. It's like, might as well be a website, but like something that shows your personality is a giant source of recruiting. And I would tell you, even in those early days when we had, 300 Facebook followers and 1,000 YouTube subs, if we ever said, "Hey, we're looking for a project manager, we're looking for this trade. We're looking for whatever. We would always get leads because of that. And they were always free, right? Indeed, or any of these other websites that you're going to post to, they're going to charge you. LinkedIn wants some money to put your job posting up. Social media is totally free. And if you could fast forward to today, you know, we've got a pretty decent size crowd watching our social media these days. We posted to our company Instagram account, hey, we're looking for a senior project manager. I reposted that to my story. We got 30 great applicants in 3 days. And here we are a week out from notification of a project manager leaving for me. And I bet we'll have someone hired within the next 3 days, 4 days. So using that social strategy is really, really key. And again, you don't need a ton of people to follow you for that to be effective, because what's going to happen is some random person that knows you is going to see that and they're going to go, oh yeah, my cousin lost his job because the company that deal with the land developer went belly up, and he's great. I should have him follow up with this thing that I'm seeing on Instagram. And that's how that network gets put together. So don't be afraid of / absolutely use that as part of your strategy.
So this winds up really well when we do our prep call with Jacob. Jacob, these are some screenshots of your socials and your careers page, but can you speak to what you're doing? This is, I guess, a third of your hires come from this, you were saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just short of 1 million subscribers by probably like 999,000. But anyway, yeah.
But it still works. So let's talk about it.
Probably my mom. But, to be honest, just having a local presence in the community is like huge, right? I was just talking to a guy that we hired. We hired 3 people here last week. One was a lead carpenter. I asked him, how did he find us? He said he'd been watching us for 18 months, working for another company, building pergolas. And he saw our guys in a Home Depot one day wearing our shirts, logos on the back, went up, talked to him, said, hey, what's it like working there? The guys talked up the company, had great things to say. And he continued to watch us, saw our trucks, they're wrapped, they're clean, they're taken care of. And he finally, 18 months later, called in and said, hey, I'm looking for a job. And we snatched it. And so it's just cool to see. I mean, I have zero presence compared to, what Risinger would have in a local community here, but it actually does work. Just having your brand out in public. If you can start that right away, start it today.
Yeah. And let me piggyback on that too. You're a perfect example of this. You have 1,000 subscribers, and yet that guy was watching you on Instagram and already knew the culture was probably pretty good based on your posts, saw your people and asked about the culture, but it still took him a year plus to reach out. The time wasn't right for whatever reason, but your company culture coming through on your Instagram is huge. And I can't say this enough. And the other thing is, and I'm having a little trouble seeing in this fine print here, but I'm guessing Red Branch Outdoor Living shows exactly where they build on there as well. You don't want people to guess where Red Branch is based. So we want to throw right in there on your social feed that you're based in this town, or we specialize in the northwestern side of Chicago or some other fine point, so that both your customers and your potential, employees, prospects for that matter, know exactly where you are. And you'll be shocked that a bunch of your subscribers are people that have no intention of hiring you today, but very likely will hire you and or work for you 1 to 5 years from now.
That's great. That's a good little addition. Coach Matt, give us some tactics. Give us some love. What are some things you see working out there with everyone you work with?
Yeah. So using your internal team to recruit. So A players, no A players. They hang out with A players. So if you have A players on your team, encouraging them to bring you applicants and offering some type of a recruitment bonus. I've seen a whole host of things, just like a flat cash fee to the referrer. I've seen some crazy stuff like $500 a month for both the referrer and the referee, as long as they work for the company. So you can do some awesome stuff with your own team too. But that's low hanging fruit. The other one that's kind of funny is we have a BTA member, Charlie Bethel from Plus Construction. He hangs every single Google review he gets goes on his wall in his office in a frame. And when he brings applicants into his office for an interview, they see every single Google review on his wall about all the awesome work he's done. Smart. And it might sound like hokey and silly, but he has a lot of Google reviews, and his wall is full of Google reviews. So when people come in and they're waiting for the interview and they're standing in the hallway and they're just staring at all this stuff about all the awesome things that your business does for people in the community, that really lands, I think, with good people. So those are a couple of good ones.
Good strategies. I like that.
Hey, if I could piggyback on that also, yeah, Charlie's the man. We actually have, I stole that idea from him. We have the same reviews posted in our office too. So shout out to Charlie. But one other thing too, just when you're interviewing, if you do have an office space, and I don't what level you're at in your business career, but if there's an ability to use a shared office space and it's nice, or whatever the case is, if you can just get away from like a coffee shop to where you actually have a space with your branding around. We have a fridge in our office space. When the candidates come in to interview, we hand them a drink. It just makes them feel like this is bigger than them just looking for another carpentry job. It's a home that they can, build a career and grow with. So I've seen that really, really play out in our success.
I like it. You guys are speaking to two things. One, you're speaking to awareness and interaction. I think people need, just like salespeople need to see your brand, 6 to 12 times before they can make a final decision. And that's no difference when you're bringing in people. Arguably, it's more important. They're spending 40 hours a week working with you. And the other thing you guys have spoken to is just having active tactics, like things to go and reach out to people and not just wait for things to come in through Indeed and ZipRecruiter and so on. And I think we miss as an industry those two things. It's often like I post ads and then I get what comes through. It's like, no, do people know who you are? Do they get to understand your personality? Because quality people probably aren't looking for a job because they have to. They're probably looking for a better opportunity. And to get good people in the door, your brand has to be out there speaking to them. And then this other thing is, if you need somebody in the next 3 weeks and you're just posting ads and you're subject to that, you're subject to whatever the market's going to send you. But if you're actively out there asking and engaging on your referral base consistently, you have more control of that. I'll give you guys one other one. Well, it's a combination of things that we used to do, which was piggybacking off what you guys all said, but we controlled the networking, or we would have all of our team in on like a Thursday and we would do like 2 hours of like it together. And we would have them message 100 people each on social media. And it would be very similar to what Matt just said, or Reisinger just said. It's like, hey, our company XYZ is currently looking for a person in XYZ role. Curious if you know anyone. Key, it's like, not do you want to, but curious if you know anyone who'd be a good fit. PS, they're offering $1,000 hiring bonus. Be happy to share that with you. See link below. And if you have 5 or 10 staff and they all send out 100 messages each on a Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday afternoon together, that's 500 to 1,000 direct messages that go out to from your team to their network. And that starts a bit of the conversation beyond just a phone call. So I'd encourage you, if you have never done that before, if you considered it, take some time to build that, build a little meeting, put in, pizza and beer or whatever, pop and chips, whatever, for everyone to hang out, pay for their time and give them 2 hours to actually do it together as a group. So, okay. Let's get into the next question. How do you use AI and automation in your recruiting? So Jacob, you've alluded to this a little bit within your ATS, but why don't you give us some more like color in this, some of your stats, like the actual numerical numbers you work out on this. And how are you using automation right now? What's it doing for you?
Yeah. So stats, you're talking about like the throughput of the candidates.
Yeah.
Numbers. So like I was mentioning, that ATS system before, WiseHire, I did a lot of research to try and find the one that would work with our company, but also like I didn't want something super complex. I wanted a simple system that office manager, project manager, somebody could jump in and figure out and use too. So anyway, the candidates come into there and they're immediately getting that text, like Matt mentioned earlier, to follow up with them instantly. You don't want to leave them sitting for 2 days. And then the personality assessment, once it's taken, the system is telling you if that candidate may be a potential good fit, and it puts them into that recommended category. So I just have to focus on looking at the recommended candidates and pulling those out to take a look at them. The reason why I think that helps is I completely underestimated like how many candidates it really takes to come into the door to fill one position. And I'll share these numbers from my market. And I know every single market across the US, Canada is going to be completely different. But in our market down here in South Alabama, what I'm finding is if I get 100 candidates for a trade role in the door through that first column, then I pick out of those, out of those 100, usually we'll get 30 recommended candidates. From those 30 recommended candidates, we'll set up pre-qualifying phone calls with, I'd say, 6 to 10 of those 30. Those are the ones we've really liked. We jump on the call with them. And then after that phone call, we're only bringing in about 3 to 4. And then from those 3 to 4 interviews, we hire one. So it's really just a game of numbers is what I've found. And if you can find a system like an ATS system that will automate that process, build in some AI, you can quickly move through 100 candidates. I know it sounds impersonal, but it also, you're trying to get through the noise to find who that winner is in your community to bring on.
Right. Coach Matt, what are you seeing out there? What are our members using? How are they using AI? Where are they overusing it? What's working?
I think some people get freaked out with AI when they think about hiring. They think it should just all be me and a pen and a piece of paper, and this stuff kind of gets them uncomfortable. But I think there's some easy things you can do, even just from an automation standpoint. I talked earlier about, how using your website and having some, data flowing into even just Google Sheets. Use Zapier to, help automate text messages. You don't need an ATS to do some of this stuff. You can do this in-house if you needed to. It's not complicated. Use ChatGPT or large language models to help you build out your job ads and your employment agreements and ideal candidate profiles, all that type of stuff, right? Like, you lean on the tools we have to your advantage. Don't spend hours and hours doing this stuff yourself if you don't have to. One of the best things I've seen recently is I have a business that I coach who started using a live video tool called Live Switch, which is mostly intended for sales, but they've turned it around. And what they're doing is they're sending out one-way live video feed links to applicants where they're doing a one-way video interview with a series of questions they're providing them. Takes 3 or 4 minutes for that person. But once that video link closes, they've got an AI agent in the background with prompts that are doing a scorecard on the answers that the applicant gave, and it spits out a score for them. So they're able to take that data and use that to help figure out how we're moving people through the hiring funnel, if they're going to make it to the next interview phase, and so on, which I think is pretty awesome technology to use. Using good use of your time, your applicant's time, and getting some really good information. So I love that. I love that tool.
So one thing I've discovered in this is it's still a human process. So try not to over automate it. Use it as an iterative process when you use AI. One of the things that we've been doing is, and you guys will get this in your package, but use what we call an ideal candidate profile that you build yourself. Put your own brain towards this. Like, think about it, color it in with your thoughts, and then use that to build out into your job ads, some of your recruiting questions, and so on. But make sure you're not just typing into ChatGPT, build me a full process, because it's going to get some stuff wrong. It's going to depersonalize the whole thing. And it's up to you to put in your human generated thought first and then iterate off of it over time. So we'll give you a template on this, but this is basically going to help you frame who you're looking for, what their role is, what they need to be, what their needs are, all this stuff. And this can help be led now through AI to help generate a lot of your actual workflow and your actual documentation you need to do the process properly. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about all of you over the next year building out a system for yourself, right? Right from the ideal candidate profile to what you're posting, how you're doing your pre-screening, your reference checks, your interviews, all this stuff. So we've talked a bit about all of this. Our hiring package will have all of this for you guys. We're still going to go for another half hour, and I just want to make sure if you need some of this or want some of this, you get it. So Aaron, if we can put up a link for everyone, we're going to give you a bunch of basically it's like a hiring package to help you building out your systems. These are things we do with our members internally and should give you a bit of a heads up. In there, if you're interested, chat with us as well about Breakthrough Chatting, how we can help you. Absolutely check off yes. And we will be happy to have a sit down with you one-on-one. And yes, we help in recruiting, but there is so much more we help in when it comes to structuring your organization as a whole. But if everyone wants to take a minute, you guys can grab those templates. Make sure you do. And this should give you guys a bit of a head start on everything we've just talked about today. Coach Matt, I don't know, Jacob, any just comments on this stuff? You guys use this stuff all the time, but.
I think I would just say is like I'm a big proponent of following, like, selfishly, our system to a T, and using all of these tools to your benefit. The big thing I think I would just focus in on, we touched on it earlier, Danny, which is preferences and abilities. It is, you can interview for skills like, do you know how to swing a hammer and run a saw without killing yourself? But, preferences and abilities or soft skills, these are things that you cannot teach people. You can't teach somebody how to be a great problem solver right out of the gate. They might be able to learn it over time, but if you're hiring somebody and you need a good problem solver, you need somebody with tenacity, or you need somebody that is really precise for precision, or whatever it is. You need to interview on these types of soft skills and ask questions about these. Like Resiner was talking about earlier, about really focusing in on something specific. Tell me about a time when, or when you were encountered this, what did you do? And dig deep, peel back layers of the onion and go really deep on these specific questions. So our detailed interview template does a really great job of taking these and laying them out with series of questions to help you really dig deep in the interview process.
Here they are. So this is coming in everyone's download package, but it has these 10 preferences and abilities. And then you delete the ones you don't need for the role, because you only interviewed on certain one per role. It'll guide you in your questioning through the entire process.
And I would say maximum 5, but 5 might even be too many. 3 to 4 in an interview is probably more than enough. What are your top 3 to 4 that you need to interview for on this person, right, in this role? And focus in on those, and they have to be the exact same for every role. Because if you're doing 10 interviews, you have to be asking each candidate the same question so you can score consistently.
I'm going to ask the chat, read these for a second. We've got tenacity, which is hard work. Attainment, which is preference to set and hit goals. We've got problem solving, precision, values. Instrumental is your ability to show up and be presentable. Leadership. Fundamental is your ability to handle stress. Introspection, which is your ability to be open and objective and learn and be open to feedback. And then skill set, the actual skill and experience of the job. If you're hiring a project manager and you had to only pick 3, what would you pick? And actually, I'll shoot it out to you, Matt Reisinger. What do you think? What would you pick?
I was actually just thinking, I'm going to pull my profile definitions up too. Can y'all still see me, by the way? I'm off my... Okay. So here's mine. What I call critical and logical thinking is actually problem analysis and judgment. That's my number 1. That is my litmus test. I really need people that are excellent in that area. And then here's my list of the work behaviors that we look for as a company for builders, let's call them project managers of any level. Energy, claiming an organization, frustration tolerance, team orientation, persuasiveness, human relations, and adaptability. And of those, I would say that team orientation, frustration tolerance, and planning and organization are typically the kind of the top things that I'm looking for.
Makes a lot of sense. There's one that I want to bring attention to. You said frustration tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
In the chat, how many of you have had a person who's really knowledgeable, fairly good technically, even maybe a good leader, but then when pressure comes on, they freak out or they disappear?
Yeah. Let me read the description on that real quick, because I think it'll really bring to mind. Frustration tolerance is the ability to respond to pressures and deadlines in a level-headed and even-tempered fashion. Yeah, that's huge for us in the building world, because it can be a very frustrating world we live in. Because we live and die by what other people do and what other people say. And so when one of my biggest frustrations as a builder of the 30 years is, something really important I need. A sub says, I'll be there Friday. And you tell the client, we're going to get that done Friday. And then they no show, they ghost you, whatever. And you look like the idiot. You look like the liar. You look like, whatever. That frustration tolerance of what you do that is critical to success as a builder.
So you'll see this in the package. For us, we call it fundamental. Essentially, the ability to stay in pursuit of a goal despite obstacles and challenges.
There you go. Yeah, I like it.
All right, let's keep moving on some stuff here. So let's get into this. This is a good question for all of you guys. You've been all doing this for a while now. Some of you have more experience than others, but what do you know now that you wish you knew then? For everybody listening. I don't know. Reisinger, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think it's interesting to remember that not everybody's motivations are the same. And, for years when I was hiring, I felt like, if I'm on the other side of the table, what do I care about? I care about money, and I care about, can I get a pay raise in the future, or can I move up to the next job role? I cared about 3 weeks of vacation, whatever it was, over the years. And so I was always kind of focused on those things. And I always was like, gosh, they made more money in their old role and I can't offer that. So I shouldn't even bother. I'm not even going to try. And I think that over the years, I've realized that not everyone's motivations are the same. And this is kind of a hard one to get to sometimes in a 30-minute interview or even a 2-hour interview. Sometimes I feel like I don't have a good window into that until I've worked with them for some period of time, and really what is it that motivates them. And so, the classic salesperson that's coin operated, right? They're maybe a little easier to figure out, but oftentimes the younger generation and builders specifically are motivated by a whole different set of things that us old guys like me are in my 50s now. And so the prestige of working for a company that has a good reputation can be worth a 20% decrease. You'd be surprised. We're not the top paying builder in town. And sometimes I get some really top people that aren't making what they could if they left me, frankly, and went to work for my competitors. So don't always feel like you need to assume that they're motivated the same way as you. Does that make sense?
It does. And you know what it just goes back to a lesson I learned after thousands of interviews. I realized money is number one when it comes to paying their bills. And if they have a saver's mentality, maybe saving about 10%. But once you've covered that, the base salary and the compensation package hits that bar, it becomes often the last thing of importance for them for decision making. Like, I'm good. Now I care about being a part of something, about the leadership here, about how I can develop with you, about how I can be a part of your team. Like you just said, about how I can be proud of what I do every single day in the work and the brand that I represent. And so just know that, like, you guys don't need to compete on price to some endless level where it's like we pay the most in the area and that's how we win. You need to compete on price to the level where somebody can live a normal life. And if they have a saver's mentality, save some money. After that, it's all these other intrinsic qualities that matter so much to the people applying for you.
And one thing on that too that just goes a little deeper than what I said was, I think people want to work for a company they're proud of and feel like that company does the right thing and is mission aligned with their values. And so I think that social strategy comes into play here. When you're able to show and share your values in a social format, you're going to get applicants that maybe share those same values and share those same principles. And would be excited to work for a company that's like that compared to maybe the company they were at before that they didn't always align. And maybe the paycheck was great, but they didn't feel great about what they did, or they didn't always trust their boss, or sometimes the decisions weren't awesome. I mean, when not to dig the production builder world, but when I was with a national production builder, I was so frustrated when I was in the field. I'd get this letter from corporate. Guys, if we can save $5 a house and we're building 10,000 homes, this is going to translate to shareholder value. And I was like, well, what about the homeowners that were, not giving them a better house by giving them a cheaper this or an unpainted steel beam in the basement that's going to rust or whatever. And so that was kind of the beginning of the end for me, or in some respects, that was the beginning and end working for that company. I felt like we're not on the same page. And so that's something to think about as well.
It's something I think a lot of people talk about. I don't know if people actually look for it properly in the interview.
Yeah,
it's a good. Do you really have aligned core values, and do you take the time to not just feel it, but actually ask questions about it? But like we said earlier, what are the stories around in their life that show those core values true versus just hypothetical? So, well, I see some people in the chat actually typing their biggest lessons. Please add to this. What are the biggest things that you've learned over the last couple of years that you think would be massively valuable? We'll have this chat for everyone to read through, and I think it's a huge thing. We could all add to each other's success here. And then while you're doing that, Jacob, I'm going to get you to speak. to your lessons so far? What do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Yeah. So my recruitment hiring timeline is not near as long as some of these guys in the room, but we hired 20 people last year. We've got a great culture, really proud of it. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I continue to learn is hiring slow, firing fast. And I saw somebody wrote that in the chat, which is great. I think we've all heard it, but whether or not we practice it as entrepreneurs is another thing, because I see a lot of people rush the system. They rush the process. One of the things that we didn't mention in the recruiting process was the background check and the reference check. We do both of those things, and we don't hire anybody unless we do. We actually almost brought somebody on the team. We are a residential builder working in homeowners' backyards with their children around. We almost hired somebody that was on the list. So it's just making sure that you know who's on your team properly before you bring them onto your team, I think is really, really crucial. Actually, I lost my other thought there, but just, hiring slow, firing fast, making sure that you just go through the process, do it properly. The resources that you guys have put together, especially you guys know Matt's my coach. He said he was a huge proponent of sticking to these systems, and I can vouch for that. He keeps me stuck to those systems, so they work, and I really like them.
Now, this is Coach Matt. This is a big question for you. I want to know what the pattern you see. We're all screwing up in the industry. You get to work with so many entrepreneurs coming into the system, working with BTA members for many, many years now. What is the commonality that you're like, all you guys are screwing this up? Quit it.
Probably just the reactiveness to hiring. You just don't get out ahead of it. You think you might have a great culture. You maybe actually don't really know how your culture is. You're not doing pulse checks with your team and culture interviews and like trying to understand why people are sticking around, or are they actually happy? And then when somebody leaves, you are just trying to hire somebody as fast as humanly possible. And that's when you make hiring mistakes. You make bad hires when you are under extreme pressure. So you need to have a systematic process around it. You should have a funnel that has candidates in it that you can dust off that old resume from 6 months ago and call them up and say, hey, you still looking for a job? There needs to be a systematic process around it. The other thing that drives me probably more crazy than anything is when I'm coaching somebody and we're talking about hiring, he's like, so my brother has a friend who's looking for a job right now. And I'll just go, oh man, I can't believe we're doing this. And because they're just looking for the easiest path, the path of least resistance. And, feeling friction and discomfort when it comes to anything in business is normal. You got to lean into it. So if you're going to look at interviewing the friend of your brother, you better make sure you're putting a job ad out there and interviewing other people and benchmarking them against each other, because you're going to make a mistake.
That's great. I'm guilty of this too. Like reactive hiring when I was 18 years old, I lost half my team and I was about to go and just hire a whole bunch more people because of a huge production schedule I had to keep up with. My coach forced me to call all my clients, push my schedule out by 3 weeks, and just focus full time on hiring. It's like, you are not allowed to start production until you get the right people in place. Otherwise, you will always be filling gaps and voids and reacting the whole season. So I get it. It's tempting, but it is something that I think, even when I talk to our corporate recruiters that work with us at BT, I'm like, what is the big thing? It's like, nobody is proactively building out stuff before they start recruiting. It's all reactive. I would love us, if we can all be honest here on the chat, to score ourselves. So where do you fit in this rubric? If the perfect candidate applied for you today, do you think your process would retain them long-term? If you're a 1 to a 3, you're kind of a mess. It's okay to be 1 to 3, but it's just, there's no process. And it's a hope and a prayer, like we talked earlier. If you're a 4 to a 7, there are some people that work out, but it's because they're a swimmer, not a sinker. That feeling of like, I'm going to throw them in and we'll just see if they stick around. Or if you're an 8 to a 10, it's like you've got a rock star culture that's like the gravity for good people. And that the whole thing, the process, the people, the way that you work with people right from the pre-screening interviews all the way to the hire, to the onboarding process, to the long-term culture fit and integration is set well in the company. Cool. We've got lots of 4s, 5s, and 7s. That's right where I expected a lot of us. So that's great. Coach Matt, you were speaking to this. I'll just give this some color, but what we talked about today is just one element of like an overall like process that all of you need to build out in your company. To give you guys perspective on like what planning really looks like, all of you should be thinking through your budgets at the beginning of the year, building out a sales and a production plan so you understand what numbers you need to hit this year, and using that to build out your organizational structure. Who should be hired this year? What key roles do we actually need? And knowing 12 months in advance what roles are required. When you have that, you can actually set what time of the year you'll start your recruiting. You can actually set what month we'll do all of our prep prior. Now, I get it. You're going to lose some people throughout the year that maybe you didn't plan on, but this is to help you give the best step forward for the actual things you do know. So we work on this with all of our members, but we build out their financial plan, their sales plan, their production plan. We can now have a business plan to work off of. We use a strategic plan to wrap all of that together. We then use that to build the org structure, build out intentional recruiting processes, build out intentional onboarding and training processes for those people so they don't just come into a mess. Proper onboarding or proper sales and marketing process so we know we can actually hire these people and afford them because we know what growth looks like and we can see the trend patterns of how we're doing. And then finally wrapping all of that into a plan for the entire company. There's a goal setting and review going on weekly. Now, Coach Matt and Jacob, this is something you guys do, but I don't know if you want to speak to this process. What is BTA to you guys? How's this been working? What's the changes created over the years?
Yeah, so I can go first, Matt. I know Matt and I just worked on this, right? We went to Winter Summit. We talked with our peer group. We worked on our business plan together on the MVP file, and we built out the plan for the year. We've got, I want to say it's like 12 people that we've got to hire this year. You know, you may have one or two that are going to leave for a new opportunity, get fired, whatever the case is, right? You need to plan accurately for those hires we need. And then I think the biggest thing also I wanted to mention here, because I saw somebody put it in the chat, there was concern of not getting enough candidates through the door towards those beginning stages. And I encountered that too, not saying that this is the solution always, but one thing is make sure that you have some sort of a budget allocated for recruitment, whether it is for the ATS system or running Facebook ads, running Indeed ads, whatever the case is, there has to be some money to it. You know, we spend tons of money in marketing for other clients, but we don't, may not spend $1 for our team, which is arguably the most important part. So Matt's really been a good part of that, helping me plan out cost, helping me plan out positions, helping me plan out timing, all that stuff with Breakthrough.
Yeah. The other thing I would just say is when you're planning your year, you need to forecasting people like you talked about, Danny, but even getting down to a more granular level too, like, you know how much you need to produce. You probably have a pretty good idea how much every person in your business in the field will produce for you per hour. Build out an actual detailed labor budget with every single person and or potential role in your company and figure out what that is going to look like. And if what you think you need actually is going to get you to where you need to go. We often just throw a dart at that and it can just create a lot of challenges downstream, bottlenecks. So build out a serious detailed labor forecast.
Cool. Yeah, this is a big part of the work we do. I mean, we are essentially the guide for about 500 businesses right now, about $2 billion in construction revenue, which is kind of crazy to see that. But our whole role is to help step you through this piece by piece for the entire business, define your processes, make sure we provide you the done for you templates to actually get things done faster, and actually pair you with other owners to work with as well. There's a lot of collaboration that I think comes not just from us, but from you guys, one another, that are in the same kind of world every single day. We look for people who are smart, hungry, humble humans. Like not every owner I think is a great fit for BTA, but those who want to innovate and evolve in this industry and see this industry professionalize, this is who we look for. We'll work with you and your team to provide more strategic direction, get you out of the day-to-day and help you build your vision into reality and give your team the clarity they need in their roles. I think that's where we see a lot of misses, was when everyone's doing each other's job, and so that they can drive company numbers properly, help you hit your annual goals, and then they personally can grow in their careers as well. So we've got lots that we do, from amazing content, great coaches. We're coach a team of 20 right now, and a really epic community of like-minded peers. And we've built a lot of the resources required so that we don't just teach something. We can actually, just like today, we can give you something to work off of, and then actually hold you accountable to doing it. We don't work with everybody. We work with companies usually in the $1 to $15 million range. This is kind of our sweet spot, and we look for people who, they need to pull themselves out of the day-to-day. A lot of decisions are bottlenecked through them. They're growing The company's not always as profitable as a result of that growth. The team needs structure and leadership. You need more A players, and you need systems to scale back and get your time back. Reisinger, you've been a part of this with us for a long time, but why are you here? Why do you recommend this? Why hang with BTA?
Man, you guys have been incredible. I think I've told this story multiple times, so I'll be fast on it in case your audience has heard this before. But I struggled in business the first 10 years or so I was in business. I lost a lot of money on spec houses. I had a huge debt to pay off coming out of the 07 to kind of 010 recession, and putting systems in place in my business and turning from frankly, a very bleeding company to a profitable company. Man, I can't tell you the benefits that I've experienced with that. So I'm a huge proponent of the BTA system. And if you're some builders watching here that gave some, a minute ago, we gave some feedback on what's our number 1 through 10. Mm-hmm. I saw some like 1 through 5s in there. My guess is you're feeling that way because you don't have systems in place, because you don't have a dashboard for your financials, because you don't have a plan in place for your business this year. And that probably translates to a fair amount of personal stress. For me, that translated in a lot of weight gain around the midsection. I had young kids. Even my marriage, I had some really tough years because of what was happening in my business. It affects every part of your life. So I'm a huge fan of what BTA does, Danny, and I'm thankful for what you guys are doing, not just for people's businesses, but for their personal lives. Because when you get your business into a system for profitability and for running, it means like for me, it means that I also could start a second business. I'm a bit of that classic entrepreneur who wants to jump on his ideas. So now I have 2 companies. And a lot of that happened because I was able to put systems in place at my first company that allowed me to act like an owner and not like a day-to-day employee. So that's my quick plug for BTA.
Thanks, man. No, and you know what I see with a lot of our people, even me included, it's like, we don't want to do this alone. Running a business all alone is chaotic and stressful, but it's also just kind of not fun.
Yeah.
I watch our members, they kind of come in because they're like, okay, we like the resources, we want some structure, we want some accountability. I've got guys, literally the first guy I ever signed 10 years ago to be a member with us is still with us. And I asked him, like, why are you here? And he's kind of like, there's a group of humans that I've been working with for 10 years. We are in war together every single week, every single month. We know each other's numbers. We know each other's families. We know each other's personal lives. We not only hold each other accountable, but they're there for each other. And it's neat to be able to go through that with a group of like-minded entrepreneurs. And it's hard to find. And that's also why we screen everybody that we bring in, because I want, just like you screen for employees, I screen for good members because I want people values aligned. I want people here for the right reasons. And it creates a pretty neat community when you do that. So,
yeah, Danny, as a member of Breakthrough Academy, I can say it's been huge for our business. I just speaking openly about the numbers here, just because I'm sure people can relate. Not too long ago, we were $200,000 in debt, net profit line showing $200,000 in the hole. Just about had to close the doors, pulling in savings, like things were getting pretty tough. And with the help of my coach, Matt, the systems, really, we were able to steer it back on track and get it fixed and turn that profit that you guys saw earlier. So it was a huge turnaround. And I just don't think it would be incredibly hard to do alone. Probably, you probably could muscle through it, but I just don't think we're designed that way. We need help. We need support.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. If you haven't yet, you can click here to get your templates. I actually encourage those of you who have been thinking about this or just considering getting some support outside, getting a community to work with, select that you want to chat with us, and we will sit down with you one-on-one. We're going to take some time. We're actually going to put you through our interview process. It starts with a discovery call. It's about 45 minutes on the phone. It's our pre-screening call, just like you would do with a candidate. And then we go from there to a live one-on-one meeting on Zoom. We'll get to know you. We'll get to know your organization. We'll see if this is a good fit. If not, we'll stay in touch with you long-term. But we're looking for good humans to join this community. And if what we've described today or talked through a little bit rings true, I would say first step would be just to book a discovery call, and we'll spend a bit of time talking. Doesn't mean you're coming into BTA overnight. It means that we're starting a conversation so we can get to know each other more than just from a webinar. So I encourage you to do that. This is our assessment team. They're awesome humans. They've all got a big heart. They're all values aligned with us. Be real, have a genuine care for people, and embrace the journey. And you'll feel that, I think, in these phone calls. So I encourage you guys to take some time, fill out this form if you haven't already. If you have filled it out, fill it out again and just select yes. Let's set up a time, and we'll give you guys a calendar block that you can sit down with us and have those conversations. Okay. So while you're doing that, we've got some time for Q&A. I saw lots of questions in the chat. So Aaron, if you've gathered some of those, I'm going to let you, actually I'll go to the presenter section, go through the Q&A, and let's rock and roll on some of these things. All right. So what questions or details are you collecting when calling applicant references? This is great. So anyone can go on this, but Jacob, Matt, I could say that. Actually, I could just say that. The references all three. What questions or details do you collect or do you find important to collect when calling applicant references?
Well, I'll just throw one thing out there. When it comes to references, this is the process that BTA follows when we hire people. I recommend that businesses that I coach follow. They get 3 different types of references. You get a reference from a past manager, somebody you worked for. You get a reference from a past peer that you worked alongside. And if you can, you get a reference from somebody that used to work for you as like a subordinate. Which is going to give you a very broad spectrum of information on what it's like to work for, with, and alongside this person. So those are 3 things that I think are critical, at least as a starting point.
I'll give one on this because I've found this. My business partner thinks reference checks are useless, and I always laugh at them. I'm like, there's one thing I do that I do think is very worthwhile. When you're doing these personality-based interviews and you're getting into their stories, and there's some stories that seem pretty important and pivotal to these people's lives and how that shaped who they are, I actually want to get the references of the people who are part of those stories. And I want to find out their narrative or their take on the exact same story. So instead of just a general reference check of an employer, a character reference, who are the people that were a part of some of these things when it came to their fundamental, their ability to handle stress in pursuit of a goal, their attainment, their ability to set and hit goals, their tenacity, their ability to work hard? Who was alongside them in some of these stories that I could still logically talk to and talk about the exact same story that you told me, but get it from their eyes and see where there's congruency or not. So
yeah, it's good.
Is that good for that question? Aaron, you want to put up another one? What is the best platform for hiring a project manager? I'm running ZipRecruiter ads currently, but seem to be getting a lot of unqualified candidates.
I'll make a quick note on this because, and again, I do not work for WiseHire. I like their software. That's the whole reason I mention them consistently is because I think it's a great software. They pull in from 50, 100 job boards, and it comes into one, and they post out to those 50 or 100 job boards too. So what I found is I just have to post it once and put a budget to it, and they run the ads where they think they need to be run. The software is ranked, highly on each one of those job boards. They have relationships built in with them. So if you pay the ATS system, whatever your budget is for that month, it's dispersing it the way it needs to be dispersed to get the best throughput of candidates. So again, the ATS system, I think, is a great way to go on this.
Awesome. All right, let's do another one. Keep throwing them up for us, Aaron. Oh, she's not ready. Now we've got no question.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them in the Q&A tab. She's throwing.
While we're on this one still, though, I would not be looking for a project manager on ZipRecruiter. I'd be looking at LinkedIn. I'd be sourcing my network. I would not be on ZipRecruiter.
I would agree with you on that, Matt. I've never hired anybody in that role off of a traditional, job posting board. It shows my age because I don't know ZipRecruiter, but like a monster.com or, Indeed, which has a building like 200 yards from my office here. We would never post something there for a project manager job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really needs to be network, maybe LinkedIn, definitely social. Those are the places you're going to find good people. And I realize that's a hard thing to say to a new company, or someone said something about how do you hire when you're new to town or you're starting a division in a new town. I don't know that I've got good answers for you there, but this is going to sound like a broken record. But when you have a BTA coach like a Matt or a Danny, you've got somebody who's been in business for a long time that you can bounce some ideas off of. So, that's a pretty incredible resource when you're a BTA member, as well as the other people in your cohort. So,
yeah, I have some thoughts on this. Like, it is all about your ability to reach out. Especially if you're in a small town, it is all about your ability to reach out to your network and to your network's network. If we were to use LinkedIn, one thing we would do is, not all of you have to do this, but we get LinkedIn Recruiter, and we would send out a couple hundred messages a day, and we would do an advanced search on anybody with similar job description background, similar experience, similar area. Like you could basically like the CIA, you can see a ton of information and have it pull up specific profiles for you. We click to connect with all of them. And then we had a 3 messaging sequence. The first one would be very similar to what we were talking about earlier, just a general message where I would say, hey, so-and-so, I saw you worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I hear they have awesome experience. So something personal. And then it canned, our company is currently hiring for XYZ position. Curious if you know anyone who would be a good fit for this role. We're offering $1,000 hiring bonus. Please see a link below. Happy to hear back from you. Second message we send is, hey, just wanted to bump this to your top of your inbox. Not sure if you heard from us. And the third one's called a breakup message, where you're basically saying we're not going to talk anymore. One I always used to use was like, hey, let me know if, whether or not there's any help here, because I'm feeling kind of awkward about this one-sided conversation we've been having. And it makes them laugh. And then we get like a bunch of people flying. So we had a sequence where we would do 100 to 200 messages every week on that. And we would slowly bring in the right people, because we're messaging people that are already on their LinkedIn profile, have a similar profile to what we need for our ICP, our Ideal Candidate profile. And we're not asking them if they want a job. We're asking if they know anyone. So there's a network effect that happens from that as well. All right, we've got another question up. Do you believe in hiring anyone with old baggage, like a criminal offense, that needs a second chance? This is a good one. Who wants to go first?
And we're recording, by the way, FYI, and this will be on the web forever. So I'm just throwing that out, Matt. Why don't you go first, Pat? I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you so very much. I think everybody deserves a second chance. I just think you need to do your due diligence. That's what it comes down to. Do your due diligence.
Having spent time in HR, I think I can answer this in an HR sense. You have to be very thoughtful about putting your people into a client's home, potentially by themselves, which happens a lot in the builder world. My people go into finished homes with families and with those kinds of things. So I'm just saying, be thoughtful. It depends on the job, right? If I'm hiring someone to be part of a crew where they're always working with a team of people, that's a very different position than a customer service person or a project manager that's maybe alone, often in a job shack with clients, or alone with whatever, or there's children in the house while you're working there. So you just need to be very thoughtful on this question, but 100% agree with Matt that everybody deserves a second chance, and we shouldn't dismiss candidates like that because of the background, but we do need to be very thoughtful. How about you, Jacob?
You guys covered that one. I'm gonna just refer to you guys. The experience in the room.
I knew I liked you, Jacob. You're smart.
Here's another good one. Perhaps for another talk. Well, we're answering it now. But how do you balance between hiring growth versus quality? Are there checkpoints or signals to slow down growth and reevaluate?
Ooh. Danny, how would you answer that? You haven't been answering questions.
I have a lot of experience. A lot of growth in Braithwaite Academy when I used to run my franchises.
Yeah.
It's easy to say yes to growth when everything's going well. What I've heard from other owners, what I've experienced personally, is growth for the sake of growth is very chaotic and very, very detrimental to the long-term sustainability of any organization. Guys, we live in North America. We have tons of opportunity here. There's always going to be more opportunity. If you asked me this 10 years ago, I might tell you just to go for it. These days, I'm like, look, understand what's truly important to you. What are your values? What's your mission? What's the long-term trajectory for your own personal life? And is the business you're growing helping build towards that? Or are you just growing because there's more opportunity on the plate and you just want to grab it and go? I can tell you if it's misaligned with where you're going long-term, it's going to really misalign the company, your people, the processes within it. I get it. Some people want to 10x their business overnight. I'm a big proponent of I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's good business. I want people to understand slow, stable, steady growth. The turtle versus the hare is what I see win long-term in business. We all want to be these big overnight successes. The reality is most of those people, they spent 10, 15 years getting to that point by the time you heard about them on social media. Don't try and be that. Be what's important to you. Understand what your long-term vision is. And I would actually say, understand what your long-term vision is for your life first, personally, and how the business can help serve that. And make sure you're growing with those intentions, not just because there's some big project or some big idea that you have. So
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I would add one thing, as we went from last winter, one self-perform team built to 4 in 5-6 months. It was a pretty quick growth cycle, right? Or from that, the 6-month period. And I think having the systems in place was huge. I got blessed with a wonderful project manager who was the key piece that I was missing to make that thing work. And I think just listening to your clients and the feedback as you're growing. So your clients will tell you if you're doing a good job. Your team will tell you if you're doing a good job. And so as we started growing and stuff, we kept a real sharp eye on the reviews coming in and the feedback from my team, just to make sure that as we were growing, we weren't trying to do things that were stupid and, risking our reputation in the community.
All right.
Good.
I'm going to keep us on time.
Thanks so much for watching. If you thought today's episode was awesome, it probably means you should subscribe. You're going to get more Contractor Evolution episodes in your feed, and I'll see you next week.